evening, everybody, and welcome to Carving It Up Live right here on Twitter, as well as the Carving It Up YouTube channel and the Grid Network YouTube channel. As always, I am Bryson Carver. Very excited to be with you on this Friday with a lot to talk about. We got some NFL, we got some NBA, and for my buddy Alfred, shout out to my man, does all the graphics for the show. As I always say, all stats provided by our friends at StatMuse, all graphics provided by my man Alfred Parsard Jr. Alfred has been all but begging me to do a baseball segment, to which I've said, hey, I talked about Willie Mays, but come on, it's Willie Mays. I'm going to talk about him, a legend, obviously passing away recently. I'm going to talk about my Tennessee Volunteers last week winning the College Baseball National Championship. You darn right I'm going to talk about that. But we're going to talk Yankees today, the most notable brand in Major League Baseball, one of the most notable brands in American sports. And they've been in a little bit of a free fall. We got some numbers to kind of show you how it's been going. Again, I'm a Red Sox fan, a very impartial, unbiased Red Sox fan. Not going to insert any, any Yankee haterade or anything of that sort in there. But we're going to be talking to Yankees later on the show. Yesterday was July 4th. Happy July 4th to everybody out there. Happy Independence Day. This country almost 250 years of age, and we are still, fingers crossed, going strong. Speaking of America, Team USA, the Olympics starts in a couple of weeks. I'm going to talk about Team USA basketball. Everybody's saying, well, could Canada beat Team USA? Folks, nobody. What does Jim Harbaugh say? Who's got it better than us? Nobody is knocking off Team USA at this year's Olympics. I'll explain in about 30 minutes or so. Dak's got a walking boot on, but only when he goes deep sea fishing. That in 10 minutes. And at the end of today's show, one of my most anticipated off-season topics. Listen, we're entering a period, the Olympics, Caitlin Clark is going to help with this, but this is the period of the sports calendar where topics are few and far between, so you kind of have to try and create stuff. So I'm going to list my 7-tier quarterback tiers in the National Football League, 1 to 7. See where your team's favorite quarterback or your favorite team's quarterback ends up on the list, so very excited to get into that. And be sure, obviously, to chime in the comments section. I see my man Patrick Brown is up in here. He says, happy Friday. Happy Friday to you, Patrick. Happy Friday to everybody out there. We got a great show on tap, so stay tuned for all of it. But first, so one of the big dominoes, or maybe not one of the big dominoes, but one of the bigger surprises of NBA free agency was the fact that Buddy Hield, via sign and trade the Philadelphia 76ers, ended up on my Golden State Warriors. I was pretty excited about that. This is a guy who could shoot the basketball at a high level. This is a guy that in the last 5 seasons, Steph Curry does not lead in the NBA in three-pointers made. He's actually second to Buddy Hield. For the record, I'm hearing, hey, is this Splash Brothers 2.0? I'm like, no. Like literally a few minutes ago, Klay Thompson just posted his farewell on Instagram to the Bay Area, to the Warriors. So Splash Brothers will never be done again. Some have called it the Splash Buddies. I'd say, how about the Splash Cousins? Like, they're distantly related. Buddy Hield's three-point prowess can't be ignored. It obviously doesn't compare to that of Steph Curry, or even historically speaking to that of Klay Thompson. Buddy fits the Warriors really well. But reportedly, according to The Athletic, he chose the Golden State Warriors over the Los Angeles Lakers because he felt like he had a better chance to win there. Here's what The Athletic said in terms of Buddy Hield's decision to go to Golden State. Quote, Hield didn't make a final decision until after a late Wednesday night call with Steve Kerr and then a night to sleep on it. Hield chose the Warriors because of the opportunity to win, per league sources. His suitors included the Detroit Pistons and the Los Angeles Lakers. I don't know why the Pistons were in there. I guess I got a lot of cap space. Kudos to you, Buddy, for not going. Buddy Hield for not going to the Lakers. Or sorry, to the Pistons, and kudos to you for not going to the Lakers. So. And the reason I say that, Detroit, that's self-explanatory. They're awful. The Lakers are not awful. The Lakers are a team that feels like they're always just a piece and a half away from real title contention in what is currently a stacked Western Conference right now. Why does Golden State give Buddy Hield a better chance to win than the Lakers? Well, as currently constructed, it doesn't. I think the Lakers are a better team than the Warriors right now. Barring if a Lauri Markkanen trade happens soon, please God, then that conversation completely flips on its head. Golden State at that point, I think is absolutely better than the Lakers. Right now, I think they're just a hair off. The loss of Klay, the loss of some other pieces, but you got Steph, you got Draymond, you've added some nice pieces, Kyle Anderson, DeAnthony Melton, you obviously just added Buddy Hield, Kuminga, some of the Pajemski, some of those pieces probably end up in Utah for Lauri Markkanen. Crossing my fingers, we get Lauri Markkanen. Point is, I don't think he just chose the Warriors because it gives him a better opportunity to win. Or maybe Buddy has direct insight knowledge now that he is a member of the Golden State Warriors that the Warriors may end up getting Lauri Markkanen. To me, there's a number of factors as to why he did not choose the Los Angeles Lakers. Number one, they couldn't add him. In terms of their salary cap, they could not add a Buddy Hield. So really from base level, Buddy Hield could not join the Lakers because the mid-level exception, he would not have been able to sign with the Lakers. They didn't have the cap space because LeBron, as we know, put it out there via Dave McMenamin. There were 3 guys that he wanted to add to the Lakers, 3 guys that he would have taken a pay cut for. James Harden, Klay Thompson, Jonas Valanciunas. Neither of those guys, and none of those 3 guys signed with LA. LeBron takes the max. Now they don't have the money to pay Buddy Hield. So on a base level, Buddy Hield could not sign with the Lakers. But he's not the only free agent who has had at least moderate interest in joining the Lakers. So why do none of them come there? Is some of it because of the fact that there's a level of incompetence from the Lakers that is matched by few teams in professional sports? Yeah, of course. Rob Pelinka doesn't know what he's doing. His roster construction year to year is odd. Pieces that don't necessarily fit that well together. You got some old vets. You got some guys that aren't necessarily ready yet. Guys who don't stack up to the level of talent that we see on the true contenders out east and out west on either side of the coast, on either coast of this country. But we know the ownership's chaotic as well. The Rambis family has more influence than they should have. Those things factor in as well. But I don't think this is just a front office issue. Fair or unfair, there is a tax with playing with LeBron James at this stage in LeBron's career. For the record, for all those LeBron stands out there that think I'm hating on him, I think LeBron's the greatest player ever. Does that get me out of trouble here? Just asking for reference. At this stage in LeBron's career, I think if you're a role player, if you're St. Austin Reeves or Rui Hachimura, a guy like that, I think it hampers your image more than it helps it. And here's why. With any great player, particularly if that great player is playing for an iconic brand, the Los Angeles Lakers, of course, qualifying and then some for that title, there's going to be more of a microscope on you. There's going to be more of a look into your flaws, into your tendencies, into your weaknesses. And then I said this like crazy 3 years ago. Everybody thinks, oh, the Russell Westbrook thing's going to work, and then it doesn't work. Oh, what happened to Westbrook? It's the same guy. This is the same guy who was in Washington and with the Rockets, and at the end of his tenure in Oklahoma City, same dude. His athleticism was waned a little bit, same guy, but the spotlight of Los Angeles, just like the spotlight of Boston, Philadelphia, these major organizations in the NBA, same with the NFL with a lot of cases like the Cowboys, these days with the Chiefs, franchises like that, you're going to have more of a spotlight. We're going to have more of a look into who you really are as a player as opposed to what your reputation is. Because let's be honest, not everybody watches all the games. People mostly just catch highlights on House of Highlights or Bleacher Report or SportsCenter on social media. So playing with LeBron James, yeah, he probably gets the best out of you still at this stage of his career on the floor. But when you fail, the LeBron fans out there, kind of like the Jordan fans back in the day with Chicago, with some of the, if a Bulls player didn't come up big, they looking at you, Austin Reeves. They're looking at you, Mario Chalmers. They're looking at you, J.R. Smith, Kevin Love, Chris Bosh. They're looking at you. Fairly or unfairly, that's the case. Now, I think playing with LeBron up until at least 4 or 5 years ago, was still highly appealing. You know why? Because, man, it was tough. You got negative media coverage if you didn't play particularly well or was going through a slump. But you know what you got? A final strip. 8 straight years. If you're a Cav or a Heat from 2011 to 2014, a Cav from 2015 to 2018, or a Laker in 2020. You're at least going to the finals, and in 4 of those instances, you're going to come home with some extra jewelry. Well, now LeBron can't make you that promise. The Lakers certainly cannot make you that promise. And so I think in that regard, we saw what happened with Russ. Again, a lot of the criticism was fair. A lot of it bordered into personal shots, which I thought was unfair to Russ, unfair to his family. It went over the line. The Westbrook stuff, yelling at it got. Westbrook hasn't had the best history as it pertains to his handling of fans. Some of it has been legitimate. It has, as it pertains to how he's handled interactions with fans, particularly with the Lakers. There is a level of scrutiny. Some call it a Lakers tax, like, oh, some teams don't want to do business with the Lakers. I think that's nonsense. I think there's any franchise, the Patriots used to do this for years in the NFL. They used to, if you go back to Patriots trades back in the day, you know what they always did business with? Detroit, Cleveland, Arizona, the Raiders, poorly run franchise. That's who they did their business with. They didn't do business with the Indianapolis Colts when Peyton Manning was there. They didn't do business with the Pittsburgh Steelers. They didn't do business with San Francisco or some of these other well-run organizations. If you're a smart franchise, do business with LA. Like if you're the Washington Wizards, can you get some good pieces of return? Now, Washington's awful, but you at least get some assets to show for it. The Los Angeles Lakers get disaster with Russell Westbrook. So if you are a Buddy Hield, even, again, he can't sign there, regardless of whether he wants to go there or not, unless AD did or LeBron did take a huge pay cut, which, why would you take a huge pay cut? I love Buddy Hield. Think he's going to work on the Warriors. But why would you take a big pay cut for Buddy Hield the way you would for a Klay Thompson, for a Jonas Valanciunas, for a James Harden's a little murkier, but you get what I'm saying here. The fact of the matter is this. While he couldn't sign there, not the first free agent that's been linked to the Lakers that's ended up not going there. Has the front office's incompetence played factor? Absolutely. But, and also too, because the Lakers are really the biggest brand in all professional basketball with respect to Boston, Philadelphia, and everybody else, the Knicks, if we're being completely and totally honest right now, small markets have more relevance and more value than they used to. Now, you don't get the Hollywood opportunities, the business opportunities in Oklahoma City, Orlando, or Denver that you would in LA, but that's what they got social media for. That's what they've got, branding opportunities that through Instagram, through social media, TikTok, that you would have now that you wouldn't have had 20 years ago, 15 years ago. And so the value with playing with LeBron, as great as he still is simply not what it used to be from about 2010 to 2020. Like that 10-year stretch where he was unimpeachably the best player in the NBA, that's just not there anymore. I think players are seeing that, where LeBron is still great, but he's not basically unstoppable. And if it doesn't work in LA, who's the first person they're going to look at? Moi. Mario Chalmers, Chris Bosh, Kevin Love, J.R. Smith, Tristan Thompson, Laker of choice, Westbrook. That's usually how it ends up going. So in that regard, I get it. The Lakers are poorly run, and playing with LeBron from a branding standpoint, from an image standpoint, just does not hold the same weight that it used to. It doesn't. And again, this has been I cannot call this a bad offseason for the Lakers because I love their first-round pick of Connect as much as it makes me sick. Obviously, taking Bronny James, I think he'll end up actually being a valuable asset on the court in a couple of years or so. I think J.J. Redick is going to be an excellent head coach. I just don't know if it's going to be with the Lakers because once LeBron retires, AD declines physically, J.J. won't have much to work with. The Lakers front office is notoriously impatient, and I doubt they give him that much of a runway because they don't do that with coaches. And so, good moves, but not sustainably good moves, I think is the best way to sum up the Lakers offseason. Other than that, they've just swung and missed it. Everybody. Buddy Hield is not the biggest miss. I mean, Klay's dad. Now, the thing with Klay Thompson, though, that lets the Lakers off the hook a little bit is because according to, was it the Ramona and Ramona Shelburne and Kendra Andrews report that I talked about, the article that I read Wednesday, both did a fantastic job. Or it might have been like a New York Times article. I forget what it was, but talked about how Dallas kind of was always Klay's first choice. I predicted Klay would go to the Mavericks on Friday. That was where my gut feeling, or last Friday, a week ago, that was my gut feeling told me Klay would end up. He fit well if the Mavs changed their offensive system. But it would have been nice for him to at least get a phone call from Rob Pelinka. Not his agent, but Klay Thompson. Meanwhile, the Mavs, Nico Harrison and the Mavs brass are whining and dining in Dallas, Texas, or in California, wherever Klay was residing at that particular point in time to try and get him to Dallas. Patrick Brown is a Lakers fan. #fire Rob Pelinka. Listen, should you have it long ago? Yeah. Is it going to make that big of a difference? Not really, because Genie's still in power and the Rambuses are still in power. And as long as that's the case, you're I hate to tell you, Patrick, but y'all are kind of stuck. Just where we're at right now with the Los Angeles Lakers. Again, this is the show. So I'm basically going to be talking about just big brands today. So lead the show with the Lakers. Going to get into Dak Prescott, his weird foot thing in just a second. That sounds so bad. The fact that that Dak's foot is in a cast. Or no, sorry, in a boot. I'll get to that in just a second. My gosh, pause, Carver. Anyways, also going to talk Yankees later, as well as Team USA. Again, that's a pretty big brand as well. America, that's about as big of a brand as there is worldwide. Fitting that I talk about it the day after July 4th. And at the end of the show, NFL tiers for quarterbacks, tier 1 to tier 7. See where your favorite team's quarterback ends up. To Dak Prescott's foot injury. If I can rephrase that the right way. So there was a picture on social media the other day where it looked like Dak and his, I'm almost certain the mother of his child, Sarah Jane Ramos is her name. I don't know if she's his fiance. I don't think they're married. I'm almost certain she's his fiance. I don't have any sources of that situation. That's their private business. But they were on vacation together, and there was a picture on social media circulating of them on the dock near a boat. Presumably, because Dak's a big, an avid fisherman during the offseason, presumably to go fishing, and Dak had a boot on. And it was reported by Ian Rappaport. Adam Schefter came in afterwards basically saying that, hey, it was a mild foot sprain that he suffered during the offseason. It's not going to be anything serious. Then Dak comes out through Clarence Hill, who's a very trusted source in Dallas, and says, hey, I tend to just wear walking boots during the offseason when I go fishing. That's a direct quote from Dak. That's what he said. I teach his own. And there was some other reports that alluded to Dak does a lot of maintenance on his foot, on his ankle, the one that he injured, obviously the catastrophic injury 4 years ago against the Giants back in week 5 of that year. So, again, we don't have to go into the nitty-gritty details of what happened, but still doing maintenance, still making sure it's in good condition. No surprise there. To me, that's not even the biggest Dak news of the week. Because I know everybody's like, hey, is the foot injury a big thing? Look, we got 3 weeks till training camp. Dak says apparently the boot is off. So if that's the case, I don't think there's anything to really worry about. And if there were, Dallas is not going to force him out there in training camp to get work with the first team guys or force him out there in the preseason. Dak hasn't played a preseason game, I think, since 2019. So it's been a while since Dak has suited out for an August exhibition game that wasn't a joint practice, because Dallas often does that with like the Rams and the Chargers. To me, that's not the biggest Dak Prescott news of the last 48 hours or so. So Cam Newton, who has a pretty popular podcast, was talking about Dak. There was one point in the pod and Cam has a solid podcast to his credit. He was talking about how Lamar Jackson's the best dual threat quarterback ever, which I give props to Cam for saying that, because Cam can make a case for himself that he's in that class. But Cam was discussing Dak and his ranking amongst some of the better quarterbacks, and I'm going to rank my quarterbacks in my tiers list at the end of the show, so stay tuned for that. But they were asking him, hey, or they were discussing, what do you think about Dak and the money he should get, and should the Cowboys pay him, whatever. Cam on the 4th and 1 podcast said, quote, he is worth it. I'm looking at the list. The list tells me he's worth it. And the list that Cam is referring to, by the way, is the list of the NFL's highest paid quarterbacks. So Cam mentioned these names. I would prefer Dak Prescott over Kirk Cousins. Kyler Murray. I prefer Dak over Kyler Murray. Jalen Hurts. I prefer Dak over Jalen Hurts. Lamar Jackson. Lamar. Justin Herbert. Dak. Jared Goff. I'm going to go with Jared Goff. Joe Burrow. I'm taking Joe Burrow. Trevor Lawrence. I'm taking Dak. It ain't what I think Dak to be. It is what the market dictates Dak to be. And Dak is better than half of the guys on this list. So pay the man. End quote. So a lot there. So basically, he was going at the guys above Dak. Are they better? Do they deserve more money? And Cam's basically saying, regardless of your view of Dak, the market dictates if these guys who aren't as good as him are getting the money or more money than him, or at least in the similar ballpark, then you got to give Dak Prescott the bag. So obviously, in that regard, as one of the biggest Dak Prescott fans in the world, I 100% agree that the Cowboys should pay him. But at this point in the game, it feels like Dak is finally going to do what I have basically begged him to do on this show for 3 or 4 years, which is go to a situation where football is the number one priority of your organization. But as far as this list, as far as what Cam is mentioning, so the guys he put above Dak that are higher paid than Dak, the guys that he mentioned, totally agree. Lamar's a better quarterback than Dak Prescott. He is. He's got 2 MVPs. You could say, hey, what about the playoff history? Dak, Lamar. Dak actually has better playoff numbers. Lamar has a less bad record. I mean, Lamar's 2-4, I believe, and Dak is 2-5. So, I mean, apples to apples to apples, I guess. So essentially the same thing. But again, Lamar has, at some point, your ability does have to come into the field of play. And Lamar's ability to rush the football, Dak is really, really good at a lot of things. Lamar is special at one thing, that is running the football, which completely dictates how defenses game plan around him. And in most cases, save for the AFC Championship game against Kansas City, they really can't. So, and the two MVPs, like Lamar, I'm putting above Dak Prescott. And you'll see where Lamar is on my tiers list at the end of the show. He mentioned Jared Goff. Actually, I don't necessarily agree with that one. I would not put Jared Goff above Dak. I understand the comparison. I can go and put up the comparison between Dak and Goff. Since 2021, we could put up the list right here. Dak's got way more touchdowns, just 2 more turnovers, better completion percentage, more yards per game, better passer rating, and a way better record in that span. Head-to-head, Dak and Goff in their careers, both guys have 3 wins, but Dak has over double the touchdowns, a third of the turnovers of Goff, better completion percentage, more yards per game, far better passer rating. And again, both guys right there have 3 wins. So I would take Dak above Goff. I somewhat hear the argument, though. The other guys, though, that Cam took Dak over, I think he's right across the board. Kyler Murray's first guy he mentioned. So Kyler, and again, all of these guys I'm going to mention when I do my tiers later. Kyler is, from a pure talent perspective, arm strength, mobility, those things in particular, is a better quarterback than Dak Prescott, just from a raw ability standpoint. What I would counter to that is, Kyler has 1 playoff appearance and 0 playoff wins. Second of all, when it comes to maturity, Dak and Kyler, I keep saying Lamar, Dak and Kyler, it's not remotely close. I mean, the Cardinals have to put a video game, clause in Lamar Jackson. I keep saying Lamar Jackson. They have to put a video game clause in Kyler Murray's contract, basically to make sure he's watching the requisite amount of film. You don't have to worry about with Dak. Dak's an adult. Dak's a grown-up. Has been since he walked into the NFL. From a completion percentage, from an accuracy perspective, Dak's the better guy. Decision-making, I'd roll with Dak. Again, off-the-field decision-making, on-the-field decision-making, maturity, leadership. We've questioned I keep saying it. Kyler Murray's leadership since he stepped in the NFL. Dak's, I remember his rookie year in 2016, like, my gosh, this guy acts like he's a 12-year veteran. It's unbelievable. So, yes, his arm talent's going to blow you away, as is Kyler Murray's. Yes, his mobility is going to blow you away. Everything else, Dak's got the higher ground over Lamar Jackson. Jalen Hurts. Cam said he'd take Dak, which surprised me a little bit because Jalen Hurts is kind of like a poor man's Cam to a certain degree, right? He's very mobile, plays the game in a way that's not always physically beneficial, in the sense that Jalen takes a lot of hits. Cam, just based on the fact that he was built like a 6'5" tight end, you had to hit Cam hard in order to bring him to the ground. Otherwise, he was just going to run over you like a bulldozer. So Jalen's kind of like a poor man's Cam. He takes Dak over Jalen, and he's right. Jalen has been a starter in the NFL, a full-time starter, for 3 years. In 2021, led the Eagles to 9 wins to the playoffs, but statistically had a pretty average season, especially as it pertains to passer rating, pass touchdowns. None of those numbers are going to blow you away, and they got bounced badly in round 1 of that year. 2022 is the year Philadelphia gets to the Super Bowl. Jalen had you could argue, should have been the MVP of the league prior to injuries. I would have voted Patrick Mahomes the league MVP that year anyway. You could make a case for Jalen. Eagles get to the Super Bowl. Now, what I would say is that their 2 playoff opponents were a New York Giants team led by Daniel Jones and a San Francisco 49ers team that literally, and I say literally, did not have a quarterback healthy on the field for the last 2.5 quarters of that football game. They were playing against Christian McCaffrey in the Wildcat, basically. Okay? Super Bowl, Jalen's amazing against Mahomes, but commits a critical error, the strip sack fumble, which gives Kansas City 7 points. That was a massive, in a game the Eagles lost by 3, that's a huge play. Not to take anything away from what Jalen did in that game, but that did happen, and it did help the Kansas City Chiefs capture their second Super Bowl title in the Mahomes-Reed era. And then last year, Jalen Hurts was potentially on another pace to win league MVP again, potentially. And then the Philadelphia Eagles go from 10-1 to winning, if the math serves me correctly, winning 1 of their last 7 games in that football season. We can talk about the year that Philadelphia got to the Super Bowl. Dak's never been to, forget a Super Bowl, a conference championship game. But look at the road Philadelphia took to get to the Super Bowl. With all due respect to them, probably the easiest road in the history of the NFL to the big game, arguably. And it looks like that might have been a fluke year. I'm not going to go that far yet. I got to see what Jalen does this year. Having Kellen Moore as an offensive coordinator isn't going to help matters. But that's where we sit here today with Jalen Hurts. This is a big, big year for Jalen. He's got his bag, so in that regard, he's secure. Really interested to see what I get from Jalen because I love Philly's roster. Do not like their offensive play calling at all or their head coach. He then moves to Justin Herbert. And this to me is, and Trevor Lawrence at the end. Herbert to me is one of the more difficult ones because from a raw ability perspective, Herbert's got a better arm than Dak. Not by much, but I shouldn't say not by much. Herbert's got a better arm than Dak, but not quite as accurate as Dak. More mobile than Dak. Decision-making, it's about dead even. I'd probably go Dak in that regard as it pertains to interception numbers. But Justin I loved him out of Oregon. Justin from a pure raw abilities perspective and standpoint, about as technically sound as any quarterback you'll find in the NFL. So, I mean, seriously. So the fact that now he's got Jim Harbaugh, if you ask me the question at the end of next season and I say Herbert's better than Dak, I won't be surprised if I give you that answer. But today, I've seen Dak and Herbert play twice on the same field in Los Angeles in 2021 and 2022. Herbert had more talent on the field, better receivers, a better, I shouldn't say a better offensive line than Dak, but at least close to that because Dallas's offensive line is declining, particularly with the loss of Tyron Smith. And Dak's numbers were virtually across the board better than Herbert's in both those games. And in both of those games, Dak led the Cowboys to game-winning drives. So that did happen. Now, to mention the fact that we have a sample size of Dak Prescott with Kellen Moore, Justin Herbert with Kellen Moore, especially as it pertains to win-loss record. Now, we all agree, I think, across the board. Chargers, over the first 4 years of Herbert's career, really good roster. A year ago, the Chargers won, was it 5 games last season with Kellen Moore calling plays for basically all of that season? With Dak Prescott, Kellen Moore calling offensive plays, Dallas won 12 games back-to-back years. From a dude who was holding Dak back, as we saw what Dak did this season statistically, nearly won league MVP. Not to mention, Dak has 2 playoff wins. Herbert has 1 playoff appearance, 0 playoff wins. And by the way, the 1 playoff game that Herbert played, he was the quarterback of a team that blew a 27-0 lead. Herbert had to have something to do with that. And finally, the last one, my guy, Cam mentioned, Trevor Lawrence. Now, from a raw ability perspective, I think Trevor, outside of decision-making, is better than Dak Prescott across the board. Accuracy, actually, Dak probably has the edge on accuracy, but mobility I give to Trevor Lawrence. Arm strength I give to Trevor Lawrence. Size I give to Trevor Lawrence. Again, he's one of the best since Andrew Luck. I think Trevor Lawrence is the second or third best quarterback prospect I've ever seen in the last 12 years. And I still believe in him. I think Jacksonville has done him, by and large, a complete disservice when it comes to roster construction, dysfunction, and throwing him out there when he's clearly not healthy at the end of the season last year, when the Jags were en route to be in the number 1 seed in the AFC. But because of that finish, because of the fact that Trevor Lawrence, does have a season on his resume where the Jaguars were the single worst team in all of football, not entirely his fault. Urban Meyer was his coach. But that does factor in Dak with I've always said, in the last 2 years, a good roster in Dallas. CeeDee Lamb's a great player. Micah Parsons is a great player. Zach Martin is as well. Everybody else, by and large, is either good or average. It's a good football team. Back-to-back 12-1 seasons. You can mention the playoffs. That is totally fair. The game against Green Bay, Dak Prescott was not good at all. The game a year ago against San Francisco, I'll defend Dak to a certain degree there because most playoff quarterbacks struggle, particularly in the second halves of games against the San Francisco 49ers. See what Jordan Love did in the second half in that playoff game. And Jared Goff, for that matter. By and large, Dak's playoff numbers have been fine, not good enough. If that's your criticism, totally fair. But I cannot put a Justin Herbert who has 0 playoff wins and 1 playoff appearance over Dak, who consistently gets there and has won there, has beaten Tom Brady there. And darn near beat prime Aaron Rodgers and played an amazing game. So that's, again, if you wanted me to talk about Dak's foot, I hate to disappoint you because I do think it's kind of a non-story. Listen, initially it was a story because Dak's in a contract year. He's got a boot on. That doesn't seem good. So in that regard, I get it. But Dak kind of dispelled that. He's like, yeah, I wear that when I go deep sea fishing. I don't know if I've ever heard that before. Again, I'm not a fisherman, so maybe if there's anybody in the comments, chime in and let me know if that's a thing that people do if they've suffered a lower leg injury. But hey, teach his own. But I thought what Dak said about Cam was really interesting, and what Cam said about Dak was really interesting, and by and large, pretty accurate and pretty spot on. So kudos to Cam. I didn't like that he mentioned that Dak was a game managing quarterback at the end of last season. I thought that was going too far. You got to put in context how average the Cowboys, average is kind, how below average the Cowboys receiving core is outside of CeeDee Lamb, and take those things into account. By the way, did you see that CeeDee Lamb there's some reports that he might ask out of Dallas if he doesn't get a deal? Like the Cowboys are combusting before the season once again, and again, it feels like all the blame is going to go on the quarterback, despite a CeeDee Lamb who may not even be there at the start of the season. So, yeah, Patrick, if it helps reduce swelling his ankle, I have no issues. Yeah, I mean, he suffered the injury 4 years ago, still doing maintenance on it. You do what you got to do. All right, are we shifting to what do we got next on the docket? What do we got next? Oh yeah, this is gonna be fun. So 4th of July was yesterday. Happy 4th of July to everybody out there. And this is a fitting segment the day after the 4th. So Team USA, the Olympics start in 3 weeks. I believe 3 weeks from today, if I'm not mistaken. July 26th, 2024 Olympic Games, Summer Olympic Games in Paris, France begin. And one of the most watched sports in America, at least, will be basketball. Men's and women's basketball. Women's basketball, I imagine, will get a huge tick in ratings from what we're used to them getting in the last few Olympics. But for Team USA men's, this is a very interestingly constructed team because the major faces, the major names for the squad, Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, and LeBron James, what do they have in common? They're all legends. LeBron first, very closely followed by Steph, and then Durant third, kind of defined an era of basketball, the 2010s into the early 2020s. That was kind of their era. And they're older. They're not quite the same player that they used to be, albeit they're still amazing. They're headlining this group. You have Anthony Edwards, Jason Tatum. We'll get into the roster in just a second because it goes to my overarching point, what I'm going to mention in just a second. But there's been a discussion. Hey, can Team USA, can anybody dethrone Team USA as the clear top dogs in the Olympics? Canada's pretty good. Actually, Canada's really good. They got a backcourt of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Jamal Murray. They got some good players in that squad, okay? You think about Serbia's got Jokic. Greece has Giannis. Slovenia's got Luka. Like, there's some of these teams that have great top 3 players in the world, individual talent. And then after that, outside of Canada, Canada has a pretty good roster. France does as well, by the way. To me, those will be Team USA's biggest adversaries on the road to yet another gold medal. But the fact of the matter is Team USA will not lose a single game. We can put up the stats right here. All stats provided by our friends at StatMuse. All graphics provided by my man, Alfred Parsar Jr. Can we show since 1992? So basically, since Team USA let after the disaster in the 1988 Olympics, once Team USA let professional NBA players play for their country. Here you go. This is what we've done since 1992 in the Olympics. The Team USA men's basketball team, 58-4 record. Keep in mind, 3 of those 4 losses came in 1 year, 2004, in which we got embarrassed and ended up winning bronze rather than gold. We average, since 1992 in the Olympics, 103 points per game. We win on average by 20. That should have a plus in front of it. My bad. But a 25.5 point differential. So basically, we blow everybody out. 7 gold medals, 1 bronze medal. Take out the 2004 Olympics, ladies and gentlemen. If that never happened, which it did, and that's what created the Redeem team in 2008, led by Kobe Bryant. Take out the 2004 Olympics. We've lost 1 game. 1. Take out the 2004 Olympics. If my math serves me correctly, that would have made Team USA 50. This is insane. 53-1 with 7 gold medals. You say, Bryson, the world is sort of caught up to the U.S. to a certain degree. We've seen that in the FIBA games, to which I would say our FIBA roster compared to our Olympic roster is apples and oranges. Here's our Olympic roster just for those that think they can dethrone the mighty Team USA. Put it up there. Bam Adebayo, 5 times All-Defense. Devin Booker, 4-time All-Star. Steph Curry, 4-time champion, 2-time league MVP. Anthony Davis, 1-time champion, 5-time All-NBA. Kevin Durant, 2-time champion, 1-time regular season MVP. Anthony Edwards, very young, 2-time All-Star. Joel Embiid, one-time MVP, two-time scoring champion. Tyrese Halliburton, still very young, two-time All-Star. Drew Holiday, two-time champion, six-time All-Defense. LeBron James, four-time champion, four-time league MVP. Kawhi Leonard, two-time champion, six-time All-NBA. And finally, Jason Tatum, one-time champion, four-time All-NBA. Translation, nobody's beating us. Nobody. Put up that roster one more time. Who is, of those 12 players, who's the worst player in that group? Halliburton, who's ascending? Bam can give you good minutes, obviously, in the offensive end of the floor. Defensively, he is outstanding. I picked him multiple years to win Defensive Player of the Year. That is coming for him one day. I think he's one day, very soon, he can get a Defensive Player of the Year award on his resume. Is it a declining physically Kawhi, who's still an all-star caliber player? Is that our worst player on the squad? Drew Holiday? Oh, I don't know. He's been traded twice in the last 3 years. The first year of him being a part of a team that traded for him, oh, I don't know. He won a championship. That feels notable after that team did not win a championship with the group they had prior to him arriving. Listen, one could say, if they're watching the show, if you're watching from Canada, if you're across the pond in Europe, in France, or down under in Australia, or anywhere around the world in this beautiful globe we all get to share. Anybody could say, anyone who isn't from this country could say, I mean, come on, Bryson, tone it down a little bit. You're starting to sound a little bit like a typical arrogant American. To that I say, gosh darn right. Yes. And the fact, listen, once we get to the 2028 Olympics, will the world have caught up to Team USA? Will a Team Canada, where Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's 4 years older? We'll see what Jamal Murray is at that stage of his career, with Canada constantly bringing in real quality guys to the NBA and other teams as well around the world. France is just, NBA draft feels like every fifth player is from France. It's unbelievable. Will they have caught up to us by then? Maybe. LeBron will be back in the 28 Olympics. Steph probably won't be. KD probably won't be. So at that point, it'll be what? Kawhi won't be. It'll be Ant, Tatum, Halliburton. We'll see. I mean, we'll see what other future American guys do. But once Wemby reaches, certainly he'll be, if he's not in his prime in 4 years, he'll certainly be pretty darn close to it, or closer than he is today. Once Wemby reaches his peak, Team USA is in trouble. That could be a bit of a problem. But as we sit here today, I'm basing this off of history. I'm not saying, by the way, I'm not saying that the 2024 USA men's Olympic basketball team is a, is like the 92 Dream Team. I would not go that far. Is not like the 2012 team, which, by the way, is better than the Dream Team. Neither here nor there. I'm not saying it's any of those teams, but is it better than 2021? Sure. No question about it. Is it better than 2016? I think so, now that you have LeBron and Steph, because that team was KD, Clay, DeMar DeRozan. I think Melo might have been on that team. Like, that was a really good team. This team's different. One could say, the stars are old. LeBron's not quite the heart of his prime. Neither is Steph or Kevin Durant. KD averaged 27 a year ago on 50% shooting from the field and 40 from three. That's pretty good. Steph Curry averaged 26 a game and led the league by a mile in three-pointers made and won Clutch Player of the Year. That feels big. And LeBron James, in year 21, oldest player in the league, just finished averaging 25, 8, and 7 on 50% from the field and 41% from three-point range. If that's our old guys, best old guys to have, in my opinion. I hate to say it, but actually I don't. This is going to be fun. I'm telling you. By the time you get to the gold medal game, will Tennessee, will Team USA get pushed? Yeah. Again, I don't know how the bracket is structured. Could they meet at France? France, I think, was the final in 2021. A team like that with Wemby? Yeah, sure. They could be a problem. Slovenia, I'm not worried about because it's Luka Doncic, and that's it. By the way, Luka does not look 100% at all. If I'm the Dallas Mavericks, I hope Slovenia gets eliminated pretty quickly because I don't want Luka on the floor that much right now. And as for Team Greece, better than Slovenia, but it's kind of just Giannis or bust. So, by and large, I think this will be a walkover for Team USA to win gold medal. So, this will, again, maybe this is some of that old patriotic 4th of July, red, white, and blue getting into my blood. I don't know. Or it's the fact that Team USA has been pretty much unbeatable in the last 8 Olympic games going into this 9th one with professional players. So Just saying. It does factor in. Let's look at the comments here. Patrick Brown. Yeah, definitely check that out. Speaking of the Olympics, I'm working on some articles to release in a few weeks for sure. Definitely stay tuned for Patrick's stuff. He says, here's an idea for a future segment. Which men's USA basketball is better, 92, 08, or 2012? Which squad would fare in today's Olympics? Well, all of them would win it. Patrick, I would put 08, as great as that team was, below 92 in 2012. I think 2012 wins over 92. Because people forget, we look at the names on that 92 Dream Team, but Magic was, I think that was post-AIDS diagnosis, if I'm not mistaken. So Magic wasn't quite the same player he used to be, although still very productive. Bird was completely broken down, and freaking Christian Laettner was on that team. Christian Laettner was an all-time great college player. We know what he did in the pros, which is nothing. So the 12 team, you got LeBron, Kobe, Kevin Durant, Westbrook, Melo. Who else was on that team? I think that Darren Williams, when Darren Williams was a good player. I think Iguodala was on that team. Was Tyson Chandler? Tyson Chandler is not exactly a star player or caliber of guys I mentioned, but Patrick says, I'm shocked this is Steph's first Olympics. Listen, I would understand why you would be, because 2016, you would have thought Steph might have been the face of the Olympics because LeBron didn't compete that year either. The problem was Steph had we understand some of the knee issues he had during the playoffs, so he opted, hey, I'm going to get my knees ready for next season. There was no surgery to my recollection or knowledge, but Steph was of the mindset, hey, I'm going to rest my knees, make sure they're in good shape to go for next season. Just give it a breather for the first part of the offseason. Don't compete in the Olympics. Clay and Draymond did, but Steph was not able to be a part of the 2016 team. As far as the 2021 team, Steph was going to be a part of it, but he suffered what was one of the most painful injuries I think I've ever seen in my life. And it's not like catastrophic, but God, it looks painful. Remember during the COVID year, this is not the bubble season, but the COVID year after in the NBA, 20 through 21, when obviously you didn't have, for the majority of the season, they were empty to minimum capacity arenas, and there wouldn't be fans sitting courtside for fear of spreading the virus. And remember, there'd be a lot more room out of bounds on the baselines for players to be able to maneuver in and out of if they had to, because they had the breathing room. There was a game, Patrick, in March of that year, March of 2021, they were playing the Rockets in Houston. And as the end of the third quarter, and Steph was looking to kind of work his magic, shoot a step back three at the end of the quarter, he missed the three. He shoots a step back three. His momentum carries him backwards, as it would, assuming there's like fans there to kind of stop him. There's no fans. He keeps backing up, trips, and goes tailbone first into a metal step. And Steph ended up missing like 3 weeks of action at that point, and ended up going on a crazy shooting tear in April, but had to wear like a butt pad the rest of the season. I mean, he was like, I don't want to re-injure this in the Olympics. I want to, again, get right, be ready for next season. So yes, Patrick, the fact that this is Steph's first Olympics is, again, for me, very exciting as a Steph fan and a Warriors fan. But that's really, really interesting. So there you go. So what we got next? Oh, great. This is wonderful. And Alfred, if you're watching, this is for you, my man. So Alfred has been begging me to do a baseball segment. And I did a segment on Willie Mays. Obviously, the great Willie Mays passed away. Of course, I'm going to do a segment on him. And I did not really a segment, but an open, as far as, talking about my Volunteers last Monday, winning the college baseball national title. That was fun. That was exciting. Got to play Rocky Top to start the show. I'm never going to turn that opportunity down. But we are nearing the All-Star break. I believe it's in a week and a half. And so the Yankees, they do this every year. Every year. Get off to a hot start, cool down as the season goes on. The New York Yankees started the season 49-21. They were rolling everybody. Aaron Judge was on the tear. The pitching was exquisite. And until it wasn't. So the other night, the Cincinnati Reds, who are a team that is on the rise. Ellie De La Cruz is one of the most interesting and exciting players to watch in Major League Baseball. This is a guy who could do basically everything in the outfield. I believe, is Ellie De La Cruz outfield? No, I don't know if he is. I mean, mix him up with a different player. Anyways, with the bat, particularly when he gets on base, he's stolen home before. This guy's an athletic freak and can do a lot of things on the diamond. But the other night, the Yankees got swept by the Reds, which would evoke this from my favorite, Big Papi.
The Yankees lose.
And it's a string. Thank you, David Ortiz. It's been a string of poor play from the New York Yankees. So I have never been more proud to make this statement. All stats provided by our friends at StatMuse. All graphics provided by my man, Alfred Parsard Jr. What have the Yankees done in the last few weeks? Since June 13th, let's put this up here. They have the worst record in Major League Baseball. They're middle of the pack. For a team that hits a lot of home runs, they're middle of the pack, 14th in homers. They're 27th in batting average, and they're dead last in ERA. Not great. 5-14 record. That says home runs 14th. That should say Yankees have hit 23 homers in that stretch, so my bad. But batting average, they're batting .222 as a team that is fourth to last in baseball, and they give up about 6 runs per game, 6 earned runs per game, which is the worst in baseball. The freaking Rockies are better than that. So rough stretch, and it gets worse. To put the Yankees on, if I may, fraud alert. Hello. Yankees against the AL East. 2 games below 500. But against everybody else, your Oakland A's of the world, your bottom feeders of Major League Baseball, particularly the American League, the Yankees are 42-20 against the AL East, 12-14. And that's significant because we know the AL East is one of the strongest divisions in all of baseball. Because the fact you got the Orioles that are just getting better and better every time you watch them. It's to me a very real threat to come out of the American League and win the pennant. You have my Red Sox that have all of a sudden been on a tear as of late. Jarren Duran not being an all-star is a friggin' crime in baseball, and the voters should be ashamed of themselves. But he's been great. The Red Sox have been great. Won 4 in a row. Are right in the thick of the wild card picture in the American League. Tampa Bay is kind of the outside looking in, and the Toronto Blue Jays have not had an impressive season at all, certainly given what their expectations were over the last few years. But this has been a trend for the Yankees. And again, they tried to address it with Juan Soto, adding him the offseason to try and bolster the lineup with Aaron Judge. But the fact of the matter is, Giancarlo Stanton this goes without saying, I don't have to tell a Yankees fan this, but is not near the player he used to be in Miami. And even in the first few years he was in New York, was an all-star caliber guy. Now, the depth of the lineup, the bullpen has been not good at all late in games. Again, against Cincinnati, they really struggled. So this has been a stretch for the New York Yankees that kind of mirrors what they've been doing the last few years. You think about last year, they missed the playoffs. The year prior, gets the ALCS, but get basically worked by the Houston Astros. You think about 2021, they get knocked out in the wild card round, complained to Major League Baseball, and basically got the wild card format changed to a 3-game series and an extra playoff team added. You think about 2020. What happened? I forget what happened in 2020. I know in 2019 they lost the ALCS to Jose Altuve, who might add a little inside knowledge on what the pitch was coming from Aroldis Chapman. That might have hurt him a little bit, or might have helped Jose out a little bit. 2018, they went 100 games, bounced in round 2 in the division series to the Red Sox. In 2017, they lose the ALCS, push it to a 7th game. Looks like the future is bright, but ever since then, playoff success has been underwhelming at best. And in some cases, they have failed to get to the playoffs at all. So the fact of the matter is this. If you're a Yankees fan out there, and I'm not, the Mets are 2-1 against you. The Mets are 2-0 against you. As my friend Alfred wanted me to mention on this show. And my Red Sox are 2-1 against you. So your little brother, the Mets, better than you. Especially since the Grimace acquisition, if you will. And the Red Sox offense has been off the charts. Pitching, you'd like a little bit more consistency in that regard, particularly from a starting rotation. But by and large, Red Sox have been better as of late than the Yankees. Fact of the matter is, last 19 games, everybody's been better than the Yankees. Worst record in baseball since June 13th. So if you're a fan that roots, if you're a person who roots for the Bronx Bombers, I got bad news for you. As the season continues to progress, you're going to be hearing this a lot more on the show. One more time, Big Papi.
The Yankees lose.
And I'll just say, as an impartial observer, a guy who, tries to keep it fair and balanced and down the middle. I'm freaking loving this. This is great. Love seeing the Yankees fall flat on their face. It is wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. What do we got in the comments? John, let's go Yankees, #payback. Well, the Yankees and the Red Sox do begin a series in about 15 minutes, a weekend series, Friday to Sunday. In the Bronx, the Red Sox are going to take 2 of 3 against you guys, so take that, John. What else we got? Patrick, Reds are a very good team when they need to be. Dale Cruz and Hunter Green, both are very good players. Yes, they are. Jeff says USA. Yes, shout out USA, the country, and yes, and shout out to Team USA getting it done. Oh, see, John, why not talk when we were the best? It's okay. If you don't got no haters, you not popping. Now, that is a very true statement, John. I wholeheartedly agree with that. What I will say to you is this. Am I supposed to get excited about Yankees baseball in May during the NBA playoffs and June during the NBA finals? Listen, we're entering, again, I call it kind of the dead period of the sports calendar. The Olympics will help with that. Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, they will help with that. But other than that, there's going to be some baseball topics here and there. I'll probably be talking Shohei before it's all said and done. And who knows, maybe the Red Sox getting in. But, I mean, it just so happened that the Yankees were playing their worst baseball as I have time to talk about them. So it's, you got to factor that in as well. Impartial observer, though, Go Sox. All right. So this last segment, this is the one I've been really looking forward to before we get out of here. But actually, before we do, I did want to say this in the outset. So I'm going to be taking the next couple of weeks off from the show. Again, a lot of it's due to the lack of sports content. The only way I do come back for like an emergency show is if the Warriors, please God, add Lauri Markkanen from the Utah Jazz. In that case, I can come in, do a show, talk about the Warriors, and that's basically it. But barring that happening, please Jesus, let it happen. I will not be doing any shows up until July 22nd, which happens to be the week that the Olympics start. Training camp will be starting right after that. So we'll have plenty to talk about in that span. Again, maybe some Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese stuff, and what has been a tug of war for Rookie of the Year in the WNBA. So definitely be sure to stay tuned in for that. So last segment, and then I'm going to get out of here and not be back until July 22nd. So I'm going to take the next couple of weeks off. I will be putting content on this YouTube channel, on the Grid's YouTube channel. So there'll be fresh stuff coming in right off the bat to keep the page popping. So definitely be sure to stay tuned in for that. Hit that big red subscribe button right down there if you haven't. Hit the notification bell as well so you're notified whenever the latest and greatest content from Carving It Up comes out. So definitely be sure to stay locked into that. But I just wanted to, and I'll put it on social media over the weekend or on Monday, basically saying that I won't be doing the show over the next couple of weeks unless the Warriors had Lauri Markkanen in that stretch. If they don't, and somebody else, God forbid, please Jesus, don't let that happen. If somebody else does, Miami Heat or Sacramento Kings, then you think I'm going to want to do a show when I was already going to take a break anyway? I'm just going to go sit in a corner and cry or something. I'm not going to feel like doing a show when I wasn't going to be doing a show anyway. But if we do add him, I am back briefly. But by and large, going to be taking the next couple weeks off. So, last segment of the show. Matter of fact, I was thinking about doing background music. I actually don't think I'm going to. So I tend to, at the end of NFL seasons, rank my top 10 quarterbacks in the league. Top 10 players will probably do closer to the NFL season. I know the NFL Network, I don't know if they're doing it this year, but they always do their player voted top 100 players in the league. And those are always fun discussions on the show. And I always do my top 10 players coming into a particular season. But we know the quarterback is the most important position in football. That goes without saying. And so I thought about dividing instead of just ranking them top to bottom, because if you do just a strength ranking list, 1, 2, 3, you can't really contextualize or say why a guy's better necessarily, or be able to see if there's a sizable gap between, 13 and 14 or whatever the case may be. So I decided to divide this thing into tiers, 7 tiers that I think perfectly define why the quarterbacks are in them. So tier number 1, I think, is obvious. It's a one-man tier. It's Patrick Mahomes. Okay, he's got 2 league MVPs. He's got 3 Super Bowl titles, 3 Super Bowl MVPs. He's leading the Kansas City Chiefs to a dynasty in which all 6 years they have at least reached the AFC Championship game. And in 4 of those years, they have reached the Super Bowl. 3 of those times they have won the big game. And Mahomes, as a playoff quarterback, is, I don't know, the greatest quarterback ever, at least playoff stats. Speaking, I've done segments on that on the show. My most watched video on YouTube is a video talking about that for Mahomes. So check that out if you want to. But as great as the other guys are below Patrick Mahomes, I think this is kind of self-explanatory. Arm strength off the charts, mobility accomplishments, clutch gene, playoff performance, the whole bit. He has literally everything, and it's kind of not fair. So Mahomes is in a tier by himself. Tier 1 is Patrick Mahomes. Tier 2 is 3 guys. Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen. These are guys, I kind of define this tier, but Mahomes is just all-time legendary. We haven't seen a talent quite like him. Tier 2, Burrow, Lamar, Allen. These 3 guys, I think you could stick in just about every situation in the NFL. Be it great or be it awful, and give them 2 years, and they could turn it into a contender. I saw Burrow do it. Lamar was put into a good situation in Baltimore, but keep in mind, the Baltimore Ravens had not won a playoff game since 2014. He was able to take over and win a playoff game within his first 3 years there. And Josh Allen, obviously in Buffalo, we know the irrelevant franchise they were prior to him joining. Year 2, he gets to the playoffs. Year 3, he's an MVP candidate and has been a phenomenal quarterback talent and, obviously catalyst for that group since then. So those 3 guys, I think you could stick Burrow, Jackson, Allen in basically every situation. And not only could they carry you to relevance, but do so with highly impressive statistical outputs. Again, folks in Buffalo think I hate Josh Allen. I hate that folks in Buffalo think I hate anything about the Bills because I love Bills Mafia. I think they're the best fan base in sports, but I didn't want to factor that in as well. But again, Josh's arm strength is off the charts. I just don't think he's as good as Mahomes. I don't think that's a very controversial take, believe it or not. But Burrow, Lamar, Allen, those are the guys I have in tier 2. Tier 3, I have 6 guys. Dak Prescott, Trevor Lawrence, Matthew Stafford, CJ Stroud, Justin Herbert, Jared Goff. Those 6 guys. So some of them are actually the majority of them are in great positions. Some of them are not. The Texans are on the come up. The Lions might be the best team in the NFC. Herbert got Jim Harbaugh, and Matt Stafford has a well-run franchise and a great coach, obviously, with the Rams and with Sean McVay. Trevor Lawrence in Jacksonville is an absolute disaster that he manages to carry to relevance each and every year. Dallas isn't as bad, but their receiving core and overall roster is not close to as good as most folks make it out to be. This tier to me, Dak, Lawrence, Stafford, Stroud, Herbert, Goff. These 6 guys to me are due to, if you give them the right situation around them, they can win the Super Bowl. They can take your team to the Super Bowl and win the game. We've seen Goff get to a Super Bowl. We've seen Stafford win a Super Bowl. You're like, Bryson, look what Stafford did at the second half of last year. He might have been the best quarterback in the league. How is he not in tier 2? One problem, age. If this were Matthew Stafford 5 years ago with this Rams team, I got no questions. Matt Stafford's in tier 2 as a top 5 quarterback in the NFL with Burrow, Lamar, and Josh Allen. I can't put him there because of age, because of durability issues. He suffered some injuries in the last few seasons. So in that regard, he's in tier 3. Dak has not had a championship contending roster, I think, in 3 years. 2021 was his best shot to do it. He delivered a great throw end of a game to Cedric Wilson that Cedric Wilson was not able to haul in. Otherwise, Dallas probably would have gotten to the NFC Championship game that year. Nonetheless, those 6 guys, you give them the right situation. We've never seen Trevor in the right situation. CJ is flourishing in Houston. Stafford's been flourishing in Los Angeles. Herbert, I think, is going to. Goff is. Trevor and Dak, man, I'd love to see him in better situations. Dak, we may see it as soon as next year. We'll see where he ends up going. Please go to Pittsburgh. That's tier 3. Tier 4 also has 6 names. Jordan Love, Jalen Hurts, Aaron Rodgers, Caleb Williams, Brock Purdy, Kirk Cousins. So these 6 guys, to me, there's a lot of it's kind of the tier where, again, you talk about Love. I just haven't seen quite enough. What I'm seeing recently in the last 10 games of the season was special. I mean, the touchdown to interception ratio was off the charts. This is a guy who I think actually ended up finishing top 3, top 4 in touchdown passes. So it looks like Green Bay's got their guy. I just need to see just a few more starts before Green Bay pays him. Jalen's tricky because 2022 he was a top 5 quarterback statistically. But 2021, he was nowhere near that. And last year was nowhere near that. You can factor in injuries. You can factor in faulty coaching staffs or faulty play calling outside of 2021. But the fact remains, we've seen him be up. We've seen him be down. We've rarely seen that consistent Jalen Hurts, at least at the high level of elite production. I will give him the benefit of the doubt. I have seen him put together an MVP caliber season. Hurts is in tier 4. Aaron Rodgers to me is, I'm seeing some lists put him top 10, which I think is absurd. Listen, Aaron Rodgers is a guy with respect to him, but we haven't seen him throw for 300 yards since the 2021 season. That's a fact of life. Aaron is still great. Aaron's arm angles and arm talent in general is, again, all-time stuff. But playoff resume in recent years has been awful. And he's a declining player coming off of an Achilles injury. So that's got to factor in as well. Bryson, why the heck is Caleb Williams in tier 4? He's never played a snap yet. This is off of pure projection and nothing else. I fully admit that. I don't have to admit it. It's just the fact. Caleb's never played an NFL game yet. This is, I think by the end of his rookie season, I think we're going to be talking about Caleb Williams as an absolute, no doubt, top 10 quarterback. Kind of the same way we talk about CJ Stroud. Like, you cannot put a list together of the 10 best quarterbacks in the NFL, and CJ Stroud is not included in that list. He has to be. Caleb Williams, I think next year will be the case. I love Chicago's skill position players. They've upgraded the defense, and Caleb is now going to an organization, or at least a new situation, because USC is a program, not an organization, where he is not going to be asked to be Superman every single game. Put up 50, just have a shot to win in the old Pac-12 with USC having just god-awful defenses. Arm angles, arm strength, decision-making, mobility, all A+ for this kid. Again, people talk about off-field judgment. Does he have an arrest on his resume? No. Has he gotten in trouble? No. He cried and hugged his mom and he painted his nails. Whoop-de-doo. I think the guy's a special talent. Caleb Williams in tier 4. Brock Purdy's in tier 4. Bryson, why is he not higher? Man led the NFL in passer rating and took the 49ers to the Super Bowl. To me, Brock Purdy is a much better version of Jimmy Garoppolo. There's no question about it, but I never really viewed Jimmy G in that high regard anyway. I think Jimmy G's arm strength was accuracy, couldn't move really at all, was kind of a statue. I always viewed Jimmy as kind of that low-end starter, high-end backup group. Like, Purdy is not that, clearly. Better arm strength than Jimmy, way more mobile than Jimmy, better decision maker than Jimmy, more clutch than Jimmy. Again, if you look at the guys above him, Love, Hurts, Rodgers, Caleb, and you look at the guys above him after that, the 10 guys I mentioned prior to tier 4, I think every single one of those guys would have won the Super Bowl with that 49ers roster. It's not necessarily his fault that they lost to Kansas City. He did not play poorly. He didn't turn the football over, but he also wasn't great. We didn't see a great performance. Well, Bryson, we didn't see a great performance from Lamar or Tua Tagovailoa. Yeah, but we saw it from Josh Allen. Up until the fourth quarter, Josh was amazing against Kansas City. Brock is obviously not Josh Allen. It feels more like Brock is more of a talent or a product of his talent, of the guys around him, particularly the coach, who is a quarterback whisperer, if there ever was one. I have to put him in tier 4. He puts together another great season. Again, it's kind of a Jordan Love situation to a degree. I need to see just a little bit more. By the way, Jordan Love doesn't have quite enough to work with, even though I like Green Bay's receiving core. Another year, Purdy goes up a tier. Another year like what he did a year ago. Purdy absolutely goes up a tier. Maybe 2. We'll see. And finally, Kirk Cousins. Listen, he's coming off of an Achilles, but the fact remains that Kirk Cousins, prior to that Achilles injury, was playing some of the best football of his career. He come off a Monday Night Football win, which he does not get, by the way, against Brock Purdy's 49ers and that great defense. Kirk was playing outstanding football. Minnesota was looking to be like a fringe contender in the NFC. He blows out his Achilles. The season goes to hell not really goes to hell, but it fades away for the Minnesota Vikings. Again, numbers good. Playoff success is not. Out of the benefit of the doubt, I'll give Kirk Cousins respect and put him in tier 4. We got 7 tiers of this. Let's go to tier 5. Kyler Murray, Baker Mayfield, Tua Tagovailoa, Anthony Richardson, Russell Wilson. 5 guys. 5 guys in tier 5. Again, Kyler, this group is either a declining player in Russ who's still productive, or young guys who I just don't think can reach that next gear. Anthony Richardson's a big question mark. We haven't seen enough starts from him at all. What's he had? 3 starts on his resume? It's hard to kind of judge that. He's might as well be his rookie season coming into 2024. So it's kind of like judging a rookie. I think Caleb's going to be a better talent than almost everybody in the NFL. So obviously I'm going to put him above the young guys like Anthony Richardson. So he's in tier 5. Everybody else are outside of Russell, Kyler, Baker, Tua, are quality starting NFL quarterbacks that I don't think can take you to the next level. We've seen Tua have the best receiving duo arguably in all of football, and he does not have a playoff win to show for it and has struggled to stay healthy. Kyler has also struggled to stay healthy and has also struggled to show us true quality leadership ability. And Baker Mayfield has completely turned his image around in Tampa Bay, but we know he's never going to live up to being that number 1 overall pick that he was back in 2018 out of the University of Oklahoma. Very productive starter. I don't necessarily see Baker losing his offensive coordinator to become the coach of the Panthers. I do not see Baker replicating that year, but do I see him going back to being Carolina Panthers Baker Mayfield or end of Cleveland Baker Mayfield? I do not. So he's a productive starter, middle of the road. That's where I got Baker. Same area. I've got Kyler Murray, Tua Tagovailoa, Anthony Richardson. And as for Russell Wilson, listen, he's a declining player, but he did throw 26 touchdown passes. Some of this is just me trying to be optimistic that Russell's in Pittsburgh because he's way better than what we had a year ago. I'll take it. Russell's in tier 5. Tier 6, to me, these are guys that are outside of a rookie I'm about to mention. They're hanging on for dear life and could be backups by next season. Derek Carr, Geno Smith, Deshaun Watson, Jaden Daniels. Now, for Deshaun and for Carr, I don't know as much about Carr as I do Deshaun as it pertains to his contract, but not ideal money that you want to be paying to a guy that's on this level of the list. So Derek Carr, I have pretty much sold all my stock on him. I still like him as a guy, family man, the whole bit, but we just haven't seen that 2021 season in which I argued Derek Carr, I would have put him top 3 in MVP voting that year because of the turmoil and the chaos in Vegas and the fact that he was able to get them to the playoffs. Highly impressive. Wasn't great in 2022 and was even worse in 2023. So, and again, some of this is coaching staffs. I get it. But some of the guys above him. I mean, we have questions about Mike McCarthy. We have questions about a lot of the coaches of guys that are above Derek Carr on this list, and they put up significantly better results. So Derek Carr, to me, is in tier 6. Geno Smith, again, it feels like Jalen Hurts on steroids in the sense that this 2022 feels like a little bit of an outlier year. Geno's still a productive player, but I feel like if he has yet another down season as a career journeyman backup prior to 2022, we might start having to hear conversations about the Seattle Seahawks drafting a quarterback next year, which I think they could have this year had they traded up, because I actually kind of like Seattle's roster. So Geno Smith in tier 6. Deshaun Watson, tier 6 as well. Folks, he hasn't been elite in 4 years. Matter of fact, he hasn't been consistently productive in 4 years. 2021, he didn't play. 2022 was suspended for most of the year, didn't play well in the games he did play. And a year ago prior to the injury, not very good, not terribly accurate. And again, Cleveland will be good because their defense is too good not to have them at least be competitive, and I like their offensive personnel. But after that, Deshaun Watson is a very limited player who's been hampered by injuries, controversy, and just hasn't been on the field that much. Deshaun is in tier 6, and Jaden Daniels have gotten tier 6. So again, the rest of the rookies are in tier, at least that could play next year, are in tier 7. Jaden, to me, I like him as my second best quarterback out of last year's draft. As far as guys I know are going to play game 1, Caleb, I obviously have better than anybody. I love Michael Penix Jr., but he's not going to play, at least I think, because Kirk Cousins is going to be the dude to start, because Atlanta's not going to want to watch that money go to waste, obviously. So Jaden Daniels, I love his mobility. I love what he brings to the table in that regard. He's gotten better over the course of his time at LSU, got much, much better throwing the football, could still use some improvement in that regard, but he's got a good OC with Cliff Kingsbury in Washington. I kind of like what Washington is doing. New ownership, new coaching staff, a fresh start for the Commanders. I like what they're doing. Jaden Daniels, I think, is going to be a really productive player in this league, so I'll have him start baseline in tier 6. Tier 7 are guys that are just awful starters, that are low-end starters, high-end backups, or rookies who I have no idea about or don't like at all. Daniel Jones, Bryce Young, Will Levis, Drake May, Bo Nix, Aiden O'Connell, J.J. McCarthy. Daniel Jones is the worst contract in football. That speaks for itself. Bryce Young, I feel bad for the kid. I do. Most of his struggles in Carolina, I do not blame on him, because I think the Panthers are the poorest run organization in all of football, maybe in all of professional sports right now. David Tepper is an egomaniacal. I know you use that word and that adjective to describe Jerry. This guy could not shine Jerry Jones' shoes, and I don't think Jerry Jones is good at putting rosters together. This guy, David Tepper, is arrogant, has thin skin, does not know what on earth he's doing, and should sell the Carolina Panthers effective immediately if the Panthers want any shot at contending. Bryce was set up to fail. Feel bad for the kid, rooting for him to succeed this year. Will Levis, I wasn't a huge fan of coming out of the draft. I thought he was a little bit, kind of on the cocky side, and you don't ever love quarterbacks to be that. Arm strength is great. Decision-making is not. Like the pieces that Tennessee has put together this offseason, I don't think Will Levis is all of a sudden, in a division, the AFC South, that I think has really good quarterback play, is going to all of a sudden become one of the faces of that division. So I think Tennessee, in a year or two, will be looking for a new quarterback. Drake May is either going to be amazing or he's going to be terrible. I don't think there's any in between. It's a little Josh Allen here. A little bit of a roller coaster type guy. Again, it feels like Brissett plays game 1, but I put Drake May on here for this in the sense that obviously he's the 3rd overall pick of the draft. Got to pay him respect in that regard. But I like New England's coaching staff. I'm pulling for Jerome Mayo because he's a Tennessee guy. And I think they did a really good job in this year's draft at upgrading their offensive pieces. But as for Drake May, he likely doesn't play to start the season. Brissett does. And again, we are going to see special, like what we saw at North Carolina at times, or we're going to see, gosh, this guy's way in over his head. One of the two. I don't think Drake May becomes an average quarterback in the NFL. I don't think he's in, tier 5 with Kyler, Tua, Baker, guys like that. Bo Nix, not a fan of his at all. I mean, he's a good kid. There's nothing personal with him at all, but he's an undersized player who played at college forever. Most college starts by anybody in the history of the quarterback position in college football. Denver's in a rebuilding spot. Love Sean Payton. Think he's a brilliant offensive mind. Don't like the pieces that are in Denver right now. So I think Bo Nix is not necessarily in the best position to explode on the NFL season. Aiden O'Connell is a backup. There's nothing against the kid. You say, why didn't you put Gardner Minshew on there? Because he's also a backup, okay? This is the low-end starter, high-end backup territory of the list, the tier 7. And J.J. McCarthy, again, seemed like a nice kid. How he was a first-round pick is beyond me. I don't feel that way about Bo Nix. I do feel that way about McCarthy. There's no way on earth that kid should have been the 10th pick of the draft or whatever, because Minnesota greatly and grossly, rather, overpaid for his services. Arm strength is fine. Accuracy is good when he has time in the pocket. Listen, Minnesota's got pieces. He can be okay. I kind of look at J.J. McCarthy as like a poor man's Brock Purdy. And that's not that great of a player. Maybe he proves me wrong, but I don't see it with McCarthy. So that's my list. So I'll go ahead and put up the tiers. Tier 1 is Mahomes. No questions asked. Tier number 2, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen. Tier 3, Dak Prescott, Trevor Lawrence, Matthew Stafford, CJ Stroud, Justin Herbert, Jared Goff. Tier 4, Jordan Love, Jalen Hurts, Aaron Rodgers, Caleb Williams, Brock Purdy, Kirk Cousins. Tier 5, Kyler Murray, Baker Mayfield, Tua Tagovailoa, Anthony Richardson, Russell Wilson. Tier 6, Derek Carr, Geno Smith, Deshaun Watson, Jaden Daniels. And finally, a lengthy Tier 7, Daniel Jones, Bryce Young, Will Levis, Drake May, Bo Nix, Aiden O'Connell, and J.J. McCarthy. So that's my list. And I'll clip this up, put it on YouTube. Everybody can give me their thoughts in terms of where this brilliant list is slated. I'm not gonna lie. I think I got it right. Because I see most of these tier lists and they put Burrow and they put Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson on the same tier as Mahomes. No, and this is not a disrespect to those guys. Nobody is on the tier of number 15 in Kansas City. They're just not. The guy, you could say he's got Andy Reid, he's got Travis Kelce. Dudes don't just go out there and do what he's done in the first 6 years of his career. It is darn near unprecedented. The only guy compared to it is Brady, but Brady didn't have the individual accomplishments that Mahomes had. So Kansas City is certainly a full-blown dynasty. And that's the thing, last thing before I get out of here and take a couple weeks off from the show. The thing that I find really fascinating about this year for Kansas City, particularly with Mahomes, is the fact that in the Brady-Mahomes GOAT discussion, which give it 2 years, I think 2 more years, it is a legitimate conversation. Not quite yet, but it will be. The Brady, and I think Brady's the GOAT for the record, but the Brady crowd will essentially say, hey, come on, they played twice in the playoffs and Brady won. Mahomes was objectively better than him statistically and in terms of his overall output in the 2018 AFC title game. Problem was, Brady got the ball, Mahomes did not in that game in Kansas City. And secondly, the game they played in the Super Bowl, Brady an offensive line, Mahomes did not. The man was running for his life. And if you put Daniel Jones, I know one of the worst quarterbacks in the league, but if you put Daniel Jones in Super Bowl 55 against the Bucs might win that game 50-0. I'm not kidding. So the fact that Kansas City was able to put up any points at all with Mahomes having literally no time to throw the football with a makeshift offensive line, that's not to take credit away from Tampa, because I thought that Tampa team was excellent and Brady was amazing. But that is the context. But if you want to say the tiebreaker now is, well, Brady beat him twice in the playoffs. Fair enough. But if Mahomes, who's the most recent quarterback, Brady's no longer the most recent quarterback to go back-to-back. I think the back-to-back list is, off the top of my head, in Super Bowl history, Bart Starr. I'm almost certain Bradshaw did it in the 70s. I know Montana did it in the 80s. Aikman did it in the 90s. Brady did it in the early 2000s. Mahomes has done it in the 2020s. So that's 6 guys. I'm almost certain Bradshaw went back-to-back in the 70s with the Steelers. If Mahomes leads the first three-peat in NFL history in the Super Bowl, like that is, people, it is so hard to win a Super Bowl. Like, that goes without saying. But to go back-to-back is hard enough. I mean, Brady never went back-to-back after 04. Peyton Manning won 2 Super Bowls total. Who else we got? Ben won 2, never went back-to-back. Rodgers has not gotten to more than 1 Super Bowl. Who else we got? Rivers never went to 1. Eli won 2, never went back-to-back. I mean, we're talking about some of the best. Allen's never been to 1. Lamar's never been to 1. Burrow's been to 1. So, like, the great 20. Breeze only went to 1 Super Bowl. Favre only went to. Actually, Favre went to no Super Bowls in the 21st century. If we're talking great, 21st century quarterbacks, only 1 Brady's went back-to-back. Nobody else has. If Mahomes leads the first 3-peat in the history of the Super Bowl, we're going to have to start having conversations because he'll be at 4 rings in 7 years. Brady will be at 7 in how many years he played? 23. I know when I hear, oh, this guy's on pace too, I understand Mahomes by that pace would win, like, by the time he gets to Brady, would have, like, 16 championships? Like, that's not going to happen. But, man, give it 2 years. 2026, Brady Mahomes will be as heated of a debate as Jordan LeBron. You heard it here first. A 3-peat for Mahomes' legacy? You want to talk about a boost. To do something no quarterback, all the greats that have played this game, nobody has 3-peated. And if Mahomes does it, man, that will be a boost for him in the GOAT discussion, especially once he nears Brady as it pertains to championships, because he's almost got him caught in MVPs. So there you go. And I think Brady's the GOAT, by the way. I don't want anybody perceiving me as a Tom Brady hater. I have been a Brady guy from day one of the show. Love the guy. And he's going to do an amazing job for Fox, by the way. I think, Fox did Greg Olsen dirty. Greg Olsen is amazing, and I hate that. I would love to see him go to, like, Amazon or somewhere so he could be the #1 broadcaster for a network, because I think he's that type of talent. I'm telling you what I know. Tom is going to be September 8th, Cleveland versus Dallas is going to be Tom Brady's first game on Fox. That guy is going to freaking crush it. You heard it here first. So 2 months and 3 days from now, Twitter's going to be a buzz. Whoa, Tom Brady, my gosh. He's the GOAT quarterback. He might be the GOAT commentator. Who knows? Nobody's going to surpass Madden. But, Tom's going to be really good. All right. That is all the time we have for today's show. Appreciate everybody stopping by. As always, be sure to catch Carving Up Live on July 22nd. So I'm going to be taking the next couple of weeks off from the show. I'll be back July 22nd, 6 Eastern, 3 Pacific time, right here on Twitter, as well as the Carving It Up YouTube channel and the Grid Network YouTube channel. Of course, be sure to like, share, comment, and please take 2 seconds out of your day. Hit that big red subscribe button down there. It helps the channel grow exponentially. We are on the road, hopefully, to 5,000 subscribers. We got to 1,000 a couple months ago. Appreciate everybody who has subscribed to the show. If you have hit subscribe, please tell your friends about it, your family about it, everybody you know about Carving Up Live, except, and I do mean except, for your sleeping cat. It rained. We've been needing some rain in the area where I'm at. We had a big rainstorm today. My cat Nealon was not excited, and he was kind of damp. He was outside. Cats do not like, any wet weather of any sort. So he was not thrilled. But outside of your sleeping cat or your cat at all, tell everybody you know about Carving Up Live. If you have not subscribed, hey, just takes a couple seconds. Right down there, hit that big red subscribe button, and boom, you're part of the Carving Up family for the rest of your life. Just know it's not like a legally binding contract or anything, but it's a fun family to be a part of. Just as importantly, be sure to go subscribe to the Grid Network. That is GRYD, the Grid Podcast Network, right here on YouTube, as well as any and everywhere you get your favorite podcasts, be it Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, any and everywhere you get your favorite podcasts. You can find us at the Grid Network, where we dare to be different. And check out Patrick as well. You saw him in the comments today. Check out Patrick's articles on the Grid Network website. Check his stuff out. Check out all of our content creators in the audio space, Spotify, everywhere you get your podcasts, and check out everybody out, obviously, on YouTube on the Grid Network. I'll be putting out content here on Carving It Up's YouTube channel. I'll be putting out content on the Grid's YouTube channel, so stay alert. Hit the notification bell next to the subscribe button so you can get notified every time I or the Grid puts out any new content. Check all that stuff out. And all right, I will see everybody in 2 weeks. Please stay safe out there. Please be sure to take care of your physical as well as your mental health. And please, please, please be sure to contact your local state representatives and senators to demand change for gun violence in America. It doesn't matter where you lean, right, left, center. It's an issue that impacts every single one of us as Americans each and every day. And it doesn't matter what someone on one side of the aisle tries to tell you, oh, it's not a problem, or someone on the other side of the aisle tries to say, oh, there's only one solution to the problem. Both are BS. Both are not true. This is a huge problem that is a number of nuanced and meaningful solutions to solve it and to combat it. So let's do what we can do as American citizens to ensure that everybody feels safe from terrible things like that happening. Okay. I'm back the week of the Olympics. Can't wait. Please, Jesus, let the next time I'm on this show, please, Lord, let Lauri Markkanen be a Golden State Warrior. That's all I'm asking. That's all I'm asking. We'll see what happens. I will see you July 22nd. Stay safe out there. God bless y'all. Peace out. It's going to happen, baby. Team USA. Nobody's beating us. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube, and be sure to go click that big red subscribe button and check out the other clips and full shows from Carving It Up Live, as well as our other incredible content creators here on the Grid Network.